Hey everyone. So we got 4 people here and we'll get this thing up and running and stuff, and then we'll talk about what's going on. What we got going on. Big Dave, is it time yet? Well, it is now. It wasn't when you posted that though. And hi from New York City. Or is that North Carolina? Probably North Carolina since it's NC. So I figure we'll either end up with a buku bunch of people ending up joining for tonight, or we'll end up with just about nobody, because it seems that my last video that I posted up, either everybody's hurt in their posterior about it, or they're happy as can be that I'm starting up the new channel. So we'll see how many people end up stopping in. Just stopping in to say hi. Dinner almost here. Hey, awesome. Actually, I'm doing this just before taking Jesse out to dinner, so we'll see what happens there. Let's see. Get that closed up. There. That way the camera will stop spazzing on the black area. I don't know why this Logitech does that. For some reason, if there's a black area there, the camera kind of spasms for some reason. But, so question, can you guys hear any kind of buzzing in the background? The screen that I put behind me so that I could pop stuff onto it in order to be able to talk about things or display stuff. It kind of is it's a really old TV. And so if it's buzzing or whatever, can you let me know? And can you read that? Is that going the right direction for you guys, or is it reversed right now? All right, let's see. Hi from Nova Scotia. Always watching your channel because I'm making racing mowers and work on them as well. Nice. Yeah, racing is really one of the things that everybody is starting to really talk about on a regular basis. Unfortunately, we don't have oval track racing. We don't have oval track racing other than in the very southern tip of Maine, down in that area. And I live up in that area. So we're going to be doing something different. So can somebody answer me? Can you read this? Or is it going the wrong direction for you guys? Do I need to flip it? AKA, can you read this? We can read it. Okay, so it is going the right direction for you. Is that the understanding? Okay, cool. Thank you, everybody, for kicking in. What's funny is on the screen in front of me, it's actually flipped. So I didn't know whether it was right for you guys. So thank you for kicking in and giving me a heads up. Sorry to ask the stupid question, but I figured I'd look even dumber if I was pointing at it going, hey, read this. And then have it be the wrong direction. You know what I mean. Okay. So let's talk about racing. And as you guys pop up some questions and stuff, I'll try and take 5 seconds in order to stop and pause, because I do want the first part of this live chat to go and be about what's going on with RCG racing more than the Redneck Computer Geek channel for this particular episode. Yeah, as far as picking my brain on racing mowers and stuff like that, I don't do oval track racing. I want to. If it ends up expanding up this area, I'm definitely going to. But feel free to go and send me an email. I'll answer anything that I can for you. All right, so behind me, you should be able to go and see the logo here, and it's Thunder Valley Mower Racing. It says Lincolnville, Maine down here, but really they end up meeting in a place called Threshers. It's a bar in Searsmont, Maine. It's about 25 minutes or so away from me. And so they do lawn tractor racing, and they have been for several years now. I didn't quite catch it, but I think they're on either their 5th or their 6th year at this point. So I'd like to just throw up a couple of things, maybe let you guys, spitball some ideas with me and go from there on what it is that's going on. If you live in Maine and you want to get in on this idea, feel free to go look them up. They do have a Facebook page, and if you type in the name, you'll find it. There apparently is another ironically matching named group that drag races that's somewhere in, I believe it was Virginia or someplace like that, or North Carolina or one of those states. So make sure that if you're in Maine, you're going to the one that's in Maine. I've been posting there a lot, so once you check in, you'll see a lot of my posts anyway. So basically, here's what we got. So they got a pamphlet here, and I'll see if I can pull this over so that I can share the information with you, and you're just going to have to look at the side of my big giant head here. And let me see. So if I zoom this in so that I have bigger icons, probably should have done this a little bit sooner. There we go. Okay, so all right, so let's see here. So let's talk about the track information first. Track information is going to be as such. And I'll see if I can zoom that in for you guys to be able to see. There we go. Okay, so track information is pretty straightforward and simple. Basically, it's 150-foot straight track that they're running on. Stock class and hydro are going to be running at 100 feet. It's going to be 150 feet. I actually measured out from the culvert in my driveway to just a little bit past, just a little bit before the turn in my driveway is about 200 feet. So with a GPS tracker and marking it off, we should be able to test bed down through there and run different types of machines and stuff like that. So like I said, it's going to be a 150-foot long track with 100-foot for the stock and the hydros, which we're not going to be dealing with. I have no interest in doing 7 miles per hour for 100 feet. I'd rather go for it. Hey, Northern Ireland, glad to have you here. So 5-minute call to staging, pretty straightforward. Winner in class, loser bracket, run for two out of 3 in order to get back in. That's just a regular basic buy-in type idea. It's the same thing that they do in competitive wrestling, drag racing in general, and stuff like that. There's nothing major about it. They do have a start light tree, so we are going to have to go and work with the tree. And no test runs, obviously, because you're going to tear up the track as you run it. And I did talk with them about the bear claws that are on the back of Mud Wizard. And as far as they're concerned, the bear claws are perfectly legal to run. They're going to let me run ATV tires. Part of that is I went back on their older footage. There is some video of them from a local newspaper running here in Maine, and they were running snow hogs. They were running snow hog tires on the rear, and so I made it pretty clear you guys have already previously been running ATV tires, so therefore are these going to be legal? They were rather taken back about the 1 1/4 inch depth on my ATV tread, and kind of came up and played with the tires for a little bit, but they said that's fine. Mud Wizard outweighs most of their machines by a solid 200 pounds. It's got a reinforced frame. It's got upgraded front tires for off-road suspension, and the ATV tires in the rear easily outweigh stock, hogs and stuff like that by a good probably 20 pounds a piece. So there's an extra 40 pounds in itself. And then the winch on the front adds another 30 pounds. So without question, I'm not going to win running Mud Wizard. So that's why we're going to talk about building something that is specifically for competing for this. Okay, so right now, let's see what you guys got for questions going on down here. You can find a practice tree app, says Jerk of All Trades. I agree. As far as practice tree is concerned, the problem that I'm running into, and I've been doing some research on it, is that most of the practice tree apps are based for automotive racing, and they're based on 60-foot, 100-foot, and eighth mile, quarter mile. They're not based on 150 feet. But I figure if I use one that's based on 100-foot, I can at least have that kind of information when I hit the 100-foot line, and I'll at least have my top speed when I clear the 150. That should give me something to go and ballpark it with, and we're going to see what we can do with. There's been a couple of discussions that I've had with a few people. One of them has been doing it with a cell phone, and whether the GPS on the cell phone is going to be good enough to do it with, or whether I need to figure out some sort of timing light. There's been a few discussions in some other groups that I've been reading, is making an at-home timing light where you pull up and you have an infrared beam, you break the beam, and then there's a piece of, usually it's a speaker wire that goes to the other end, which has another infrared beam detector. You break that, and that's your timing marker there. I did find there are instructables on being able to make one, and I've got enough electrical background, I bet I probably could, so we might look into that also. So that's the track part of it. Disqualification, red light start, crossing center line, and missing your 5-minute call. That's your basic stuff. That's what any track is going to go and have. Let me see. All right, next question down. Is this for mower racing only? Yes. As far as Thunder Valley is concerned, it is mower racing only. So it's Thunder Valley mower racing, and yes, it is lawn tractor only. While we're at it, let me see here. So let's pull up rules for all classes, because one thing that I find interesting is they have a rules for all class. And apparently I'm sitting here scrolling over. There we go. Oh. Apparently my mouse is possessed today. Here we go. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to chop off 8 and 9 on the list. 8 and 9 are pretty self-explanatory. Basically, you got to have a helmet and don't be wearing shorts and don't be in a Hawaiian shirt. Pretty straightforward. Apparently, there was a guy that was drag racing last year in sandals, and they did decide to go in pretty well haze and call him out for it at the last meeting that I attended. So I guess all my sandal pictures of me mudding aren't okay with this group. All right, so let's go down through the list here, which is pretty straightforward as far as all classes are concerned, and go from there. Jerk of all trades, this will end up answering your question here. So number 1, must be a stock mower engine, chassis, drivetrain, rear end, transaxle, which cut grass at one time. So that's pretty straightforward. Basically, it's got to be a lawn tractor, and it's got to have actually cut grass at some point. There seems to be a little bit of play as far as the front axle relocation, which is part of the problem that they're having with Mud Wizard and whether I'll be allowed to run it. Basically, the only thing in Mud Wizard that may potentially not qualify me is that I have my front suspension. And what they have agreed to is that if I show up and I can keep it in a straight line for 150 feet while going full throttle, they'll let me run. So they're willing to go and bend it a little bit on stuff like that. There's a lot of the guys in the larger big mod class that have the axle out in front, or they have the axle extended out and then up in front so that their front ends are lowered. So it's got a little bit of leeway, but Mud Wizard is really pushing the aspect of what their normal situation is. So we may or may not be able to run Mud Wizard once or twice. It's going to depend on the test and tune that I'm going to, hopefully sometime next month. Let's see. I need to go on a diet. Oh, I'm assuming Mud Wizard needs to go on a diet. Yes, Mud Wizard to actually competitively race would have to go on a major diet. With the extra 200 pounds that Mud Wizard has on it, there's no way he's going to be competitive. But let's get back to this in just a second. I'm making sure I didn't miss any stuff that you guys have here right now. Okay. All right. Answering the question down below of is it only for mudding or racing? I forgot to go and say that, or at least I think I might have. They're racing on gravel. Apparently, they used to attempt to race on tar, and they were blowing up transmissions one right after another. So they race on gravel. Throwing this in there also, apparently most of these guys are running open differentials. They're not running lockers. And I'm not really sure what to think about that. Anybody who's ever seen a mud mower knows that you need that locker in order to get the torque, in order to get out of a mud hole. And anybody who's ever gone drag racing knows that you need a locker in order to go drag racing in the rear of a car. The fact that out of the 20, I think it's 25, 24ish, 25 of them that I've spoken to, it looks as if there's only one guy that runs a locker out of the entire group. And so therefore I would be the second one to be running a locker. Right now I've got the Spicer with the zinc locker in it in the back of Mud Wizard. I'm actually planning on beating on that and seeing whether it'll finally actually explode in the next month or so. So we'll see what it is I decide to put in there. Most likely it's going to be an MST 205 or an MST 206. And the reason being is because those tend to shift on the go way better than a Spicer or a 930 or something along those lines. My bet would be most likely it's going to be best to probably do like a third gear clutch dump takeoff and then a shift into fifth. The other thing is that we'll get back into it more. I'll come back to the transmission thing in a second, because I'm also debating a transmission that's specifically built just for doing this drag race that I can pop in under Mud Wizard. But I'll get back to that in just a second. So let's see. Number 2, must have working brakes and 4 wheels. That is pretty self-explaining. Naturally aspirated. They have made it very abundantly clear there is no ifs, ands, or buts, not allowed to run turbos, not allowed to run anything along those lines. No turbos, no ifs, ands, or buts. Must be pump gas. Octane boost is allowed to 110 octane for engine protection. So they don't want racing gas, and they don't want 85 E85 being run. It is what it is. I'm not really worried about that as far as us running. No zero turn mowers allowed. So yeah, that is what it is. Zero turns are mostly hydros to begin with. Yes, zero turns tend to be stock faster. So They probably just decided to go and cut out the 0 turns because of that, but who knows. Must have a kill switch or key. Okay, Mud Wizard definitely has that. It's got the slap kill switch on the front dashboard that's fluorescent red, and I install those on every machine nowadays. You can buy those kill panels that I put on the gas-powered Power Wheel and Mud Wizard. Those kill panels with the start toggle and the light toggles, they're like 14, 16 bucks nowadays. I mean, you might as well just use one of those. It's only $4 or $5 more than a key toggle switch, and there's no dumb stuff mixed in. And number 7, mowers are allowed to move up in as many classes as they like with the same mower, with the exception of Outlaw. The exception of Outlaw class we'll touch on in just a second. But basically, the Outlaw class has certain restrictions in the motor build that are not allowed in the 2 classes below. That's the 5-second version. All right. So let me see here. Okay. So after that, there's a couple of other rules. Nobody cares about running stock. I don't think I'm going to, nor are any of you if you decide to show up. I'm pretty sure none of you are going to show up and run a hydro. The answer to the hydro question, since I know it's going to be asked because I tried to go and build one and I plan on bringing it back, no. My hydro system that I built with the sprockets going from the hydro transaxle to a live axle in the rear is not okay with them. It already was declared as not okay. I didn't even get to bring it up. I was told straight out, right, no, you're not allowed. So to answer that question, the answer is no. I didn't even get to ask. Somebody who knew my YouTube channel preemptively confronted me and told me no. So there's that answer. Okay, so let's pull up the next one, which is going to be, let's see, where is it? Small mod class. Okay, so this is the class that technically Mud Wizard qualifies for. All right, I'll move that over there a bit so my fat head doesn't get in the way. All right, let's double check what we got for questions here before we move on to this while you guys are taking a look at it. Let me see. Was just going to suggest building a 2-speed drag tranny with a slap shift. I'll get to that in just a sec. The other thing that, while we're on that, one of the things that I ended up discovering was apparently there's only about 3 of these guys that actually are comfortable with ripping apart the transmissions themselves. And so pretty much they blow them up and they end up selling off the carcasses for really cheap. And they apparently, if they run the Peerless 820s, a lot of them end up exploding 4th gear. And I'm not really sure what to think about that. I know that the MST 205s and the 206s that I've plowed with in the past, I usually ended up exploding 4th gear in those while I was plowing. So maybe the gear ratio that's in them is close and the transmission just can't take it. Or maybe these guys are launching in 4th gear. I haven't been able to go see myself, so we'll find out. So that's the other thing. The other thing that I haven't quite decided on is whether I should change my pulley ratio from my engine to my transmission and go from there. We'll see. Feel free to throw suggestions at me. Feel free to send me an email. Feel free to send me anything else and we'll work with it. Okay, so catching up on questions just in case. I'd like to see someone do a good mud run with a 0 turn. Hunter, if you actually look on YouTube and you look up zero turn mud tires, you will find back probably about 8 years or so ago, there was a guy who took It was a yellow zero turn. I can't remember what the brand was. And he mounted, I believe they were 34-inch mud boggers on it, and he had upgraded front tires on it also. He did a few videos on it, but what ended up happening was it just ended up tipping up on its side and just wheelied, and he constantly was up on his rear end. And because the hydro lock in them works through I can't remember what it was, what they call it, pressure equation or something like that. When one side would overly slip, it would spin the other side. So he couldn't go in a straight line if he was in really soupy mud. He ended up kind of walking it back and forth. It's a cute concept, just not really the best. Let's see. The reverse on accident is, oh, the reverse on accident I hear is why no zero turns. Interesting. Yeah, it really wouldn't take that much, though, to make a reverse lockout pin or something on either side, though. I mean, just a flip down piece that, I mean, you could do it even with a door hinge. You just have a door hinge that flips down into the reverse position, so when you bring the lever back, you can't hit it. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Let's see. You're going to need wheelie bars on the back. How about there? Let's see. Big downfall in lawnmower racing in the last 10 years. Isn't the standard the Peerless 700? I have never had a problem with it with reverse taken out completely. Okay, so Nicholas, what you're talking about is you're talking about circle track oval racing. We're talking drag racing right now. So as far as drag racing goes, these guys, as far as I know, there's nobody running a 700. I do have two, yes, I have two 700s on hand, but I'm not sure what they would say as far as me running my 700 to a live axle. I do have an old rear assembly out of a Lawn Chief that has a 700 in it. And that 700 system, I believe, goes to a Peerless differential axle. And that wouldn't take very much to go and just weld and locker so that it's there. That's a potential idea, is finding another Lawn Chief with another 700 series in it. I like that. That's good. See, as it is right now, it sounds like most of them are running either Craftsman's or Murray type setups with MST 205s or Peerless 820s, as far as I can tell from what people are saying. The other thing that I've been debating, and you guys are welcome to go and throw something out there, is going to an MTD with a Vari-Drive setup. There's a lot of larger MTDs that came with there's a lot of MTDs that came with large twin cylinder Tecumsehs, and I have one actually in the garage right now. And those actually have an upgraded Vari-Drive in them. I bet that actually would work pretty good. I bet a Vari-Drive system actually would probably drag race pretty well. We might play with that. Like I said, we've got the 150 feet worth of drag strip here that we can use. We've got a driveway that's 200 feet long in a straightaway. So we can try this and we can rack up and see what actually does it. Let me see here. Rear engine drag tractor with a stretched frame. That's a potential. I mean, the problem with rear engine is even stock, they tend to be very wheelie machine. So you'd be riding it like right out there. I mean, maybe if you stretched it and deliberately dropped the seat so that you came down in front of the motor shroud so that your weight came forward about a foot, that might work. Take the whole steering assembly, drop it down so it's about 6, 8 inches shorter, extend the chassis a little bit. That could work. All right, so now that we're caught up with this, let's see what we can do here. Let me see. Okay, yeah, that was brilliant of me. Let me stare at the screen while I'm holding everything right here. All right, let's see. Okay, engine size, 500cc or less. Okay, 500cc or less. To put that in perspective, a 17.5 single cylinder Briggs, a 17.5 single cylinder Briggs is exactly 500 cc's. So basically, we're looking at any single cylinder that is 17 horsepower to 17.5 horsepower. Somewhere in that ballpark is going to be the upper end. What's in the Mud Wizard right now is a 17.5 mongrel. So we're right on the edge of what is legally allowed to run small mod. So you can run you could run the Kohler 17s, you could run the 17.5 single cylinder Briggs. I believe the 14.5 V would qualify. There'd be a bunch of little twins and little V's that would qualify. The one thing these guys really filled me in on, though, is that apparently the OPs just do not work as far as the drag racing is concerned. Apparently the OPs, as far as the weight to horsepower ratio and everything, they just don't launch correctly. I've been watching some of the videos. I've been talking with a bunch of people, and the OPs are all great as far as torque goes. And yes, there are some OPs that fit in that 500cc, but they're just not worth it as far as the drag racing is concerned. So we'll see how that goes. I think my goal at this point, yes, an OP is an opposed twin. I think my goal at this point is going to be sticking with the single cylinder setup that I have now, only attempting to find one of the newer single cylinder Briggs and drop that on. As everybody knows, the motor that's on Mud Wizard right now, it's got sticking valves. The carburetor doesn't work right. The bottom end of the engine is out of a exploded 15 horsepower. The cylinders are out of a 17.5. The head is off of a 17. The flywheel is off of one of those 3 or 4. The starter is another question where that ever came from. So that motor has had it. That motor, without question, is just absolutely dog dirt and needs to go. So we're going to see what we can find. Like I said, preferably a 17.5 Briggs, which is right on the 500cc requirement. All right, let me see. What do we got going? Let's see. Let me see here. Variable trans would be excellent if you can dial it in and it can take it. See, that's just it. I think that you could do it with a variable drive, like you said, as long as you dial it in. I think, I mean, that, and I've also got 7 spares. So, if I blow up a couple while we're trying this, who the heck cares? I've got some agricultural tires off the original gas-powered Power Wheel. I've got 7 spare transmissions. I already know how to make a locker for those. I've already got a second version of the locker that I've come up with that we're going to try. So as far as I'm concerned, let's do it. Let's blow up a few of them. I end up with them for free on a regular basis, so who cares? Let's see. All right, so Tim's Flippin' Tractors is coming back with a question towards the Redneck Computer Geek primary channel. And I'm going to answer this one, even though the idea was to be into the racing channel for this video. So the question is, the tractor hunt videos, where are they going to be? The tractor hunt videos are going to be on the Redneck Computer Geek channel. They're going to be on the primary channel. The racing channel is going to stay to building automotive stuff, working on racing tractors. I'm probably going to put like restoration projects on there. Rebuilding the Monte Carlo is going to be on there. If I get the F-150 with the board over motor up and running, that's going to be on RCG Racing. I've got another junkyard truck build that I'm going to be doing. That's going to be on RCG Racing. The Redneck Computer Jeep, yeah, great. The Jeep is probably going to be on RCG Racing just because it's a reconstruction video. As far as Redneck Computer Geek is going to be concerned, the Power Wheel stuff is going to be there. The mobility scooter Power Wheel builds are going to be there. The gas-powered Power Wheel build is going to stay there due to YouTube's brilliance in what they consider kids stuff. The tractor hunt videos are going to stay on the Redneck Computer Geek channel because John really loves being a part of doing those. He really loves going along, and I'm not going to make him lose out on that. It's really big to me that John gets to be able to participate in the YouTube work because someday I'm going to drop dead, and this is my legacy I intend to pass on to him and have him continue at some point. So that's going to stay there. Things that I do to the property that are not racing related or large mechanical related stuff will probably be on the Redneck Computer Geek channel. If I end up doing some sort of major home renovation that I feel like sharing with you, like when I'm restoring the rest of the house or something like that, that's going to be on the Redneck Computer Geek channel. The RCG Racing is going to stay towards racing modification, mudding, vehicle restoration, stuff like that. Think family versus dedicated racing adult stuff. That's the way to decide what's going to go where. And as far as the Facebook page is concerned, the Facebook page is Facebook's really a jerk when it comes to their, I hate to say it, but it's about the money when it comes to Facebook. They're really a jerk that if a video does not stay within a certain percentage of views of your other videos, that they'll actually demote your monetization down to lower levels on your other videos, even though they're doing really well. So what's going to end up on the Facebook page is what I think is going to mix with the Facebook crowd, I guess you would say. The Facebook page will probably end up being a lot of RCG Racing finalized videos, along with stuff that I think Facebooky type people would pass around. That just kind of is the way I'm going to have to go. I've got to make a go of this. I've got to recover I've got to recover 7 to 9 months worth of income. And so the real reality is that's just the way I've got to play Facebook. Once I get everything up and running and I'm at a level point that I'm not worried about it, maybe that'll change. Maybe we'll shift a few more things and go from there. But that's what the Facebook page is going to be, is whatever I think that the Facebooky type people are going to actually share and enjoy. All right, let's see. You meet a lot of nice people on your journeys. Yes, you meet a very amazing number of people doing the lawn tractor stuff and doing the pickups and the flips and stuff like that. I actually had a guy get a hold of me today. I don't know when I sold him a lawn tractor, but apparently I sold him a lawn tractor. He remembers me. He remembers me being polite. He remembers everything else about the sale. And he apparently is giving me back the tractor that I sold him, along with another machine, and dropping it off to me later sometime next month because I was polite. I mean, it pays to be polite with people. It pays to go and be down to earth, and it pays to be understanding and talk with people. So always keep that in mind. I mean, that's a machine that I would have paid him $50 for. But because I was polite, apparently when I sold it to him, I think 2 years ago, he remembered me. He remembered me being polite and decided that since he doesn't need it anymore, he's just going to give it back to me. That's one big thing I try to go and get through to people is don't be rude. Talk with people, don't downsize them. All right. All right, let's see. Okay, so let's see if I can catch up here on a couple of things and go from there. Link to the group that is sanctioning and managing this competition. Just, yes, swing back later and I will toss. I tell you what, when I get done with this, I will toss a link to the Facebook page for them in the description of this video when it gets finalized to YouTube. You're going to have to give me a little bit. I'm going out on a date with Jessie tonight that I've been promising her, and you got to keep your promise. So I will make sure to go and put a link in the description. Just come back to the video tomorrow and I guarantee it'll be there. If not, before I take her out on a date tonight. Yeah, I have a lot of people that seem to think I should LS swap the Monte Carlo. You know what I've really debated? I I have really debated, just because of the fact that I can pick them up so dirt cheap, is just to go and piss off the entire world on YouTube. Finding a Ford Ranger exactly the same as mine with a 4.0 in it that has more horsepower than that old ancient 305 that's in there, and just drop the drivetrain out of a Ford Ranger into the Monte Carlo. I'm sure that YouTube would absolutely decide to go totally ballistic and tell me how stupid I am. But you know what? Why not? I've got all the extra parts and everything else, and it's not as if it's not as if fabricating a couple of motor mounts would be that hard for it. And the 4.0 is the same exact size and has, I think it has almost 60 more horsepower than the Monte Carlo stock motor has. And just because it would absolutely torment the entire world to do it, I might do it. Everybody LS swaps everything, and I totally get why everybody LS swaps everything. But why not? Why not just aggravate the whole world? You got to make a Tesla racing mower. Okay, while we're on that, while we're on the idea of electric, thank you very much for saying that. While we're on the aspect of electric, they the very first meeting that I was there, I brought up whether I could run the electric tractor that I built and whether I could build a faster electric tractor. The answer is they are really afraid of the idea of dealing with lithium batteries and everything else, because I talked with one of their tech guys and mentioned the fact that I was looking into trying to go and get a hold of a Toyota Prius battery pack. That's my goal for the electric tractor stuff, is to get a hold of a Toyota Prius battery pack, because you can run You can run monitoring circuits independently on the cells in a Toyota Prius. So if I can get a hold of one of those, make a monitoring circuit, I will probably build an electric tractor based on that. They said no. No if, ands, or buts, no negotiation, no anything. They will not allow me to run an electric lawn tractor. On the other hand, I have talked with another drag strip in the area, and they are willing to tech check it and go from there and decide. They're going to take some time to look into whether they're okay with the idea of the electric vehicle thing. Apparently, they've only had a few Teslas show up at their track, and they didn't end up staying around. So they haven't had to deal with electric vehicles or electric conversions that much, but they're willing to talk with me about it. That's an 1/8 of a mile track that's about 45 minutes northeast of me from here, and we'll see. We're going to look into it. That's the other thing, is I'm debating also a tractor build for the 1/8 mile track. They have agreed that as long as I can pass their tech spec, that they will allow me to run. They will allow me to run against the ATVs. Obviously, in a lawn tractor, I'm not going to beat ATVs anytime soon, but you never know. Let's see what we can pull off. Hi, where do you find the new channel? The new channel is RCG Racing. If you go to my last video that I posted, in the video description, there will be a link that takes you right directly to the channel. And that video there will explain why I started RCG Racing. I'm not going to get into that right now because we're starting to run out of time on my hour that I usually run this. I'm going to try and catch up with what you guys are saying for stuff here, and then we're going to finish what we have behind us and go from there. Okay. I'm gonna read this one. Not stalking you, but have you looked at your pond from Google Maps? It's the shape of our country. Boredom set in here lately with constant raining, so let's go Googling. Yes, actually, I have noticed that it is shaped like the United States. What's funny also is that if you turn it so it's like the United States, if you go down south, the further down you go, the deeper the pond gets, ironically. I have noticed that irony also. The side of the pond that would be Texas and Florida are the deep ends of the pond if you're ever here. That's another thing. I'm not dealing with crazy psycho ward situations anymore. Jesse is quite understanding that if I end up wanting to go and have another YouTube channel over here and visiting and working on collaborations, that it is definitely something that I need and want to do. So if you have a YouTube channel or you have some sort of collaboration type idea that you want to work on, feel free to get a hold of me and we'll go from there. I noticed somebody was asking if I have a LinkedIn account. I have a really, really ancient LinkedIn account that I don't think I've probably logged into in probably 7 years. You're really better off just to hit me with an email. I don't like LinkedIn, can't stand them, didn't like them when they started. Feel free to go and hit me up with an email. Maine, as in the state, mud, mower at yahoo.com. Drop it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I need to get off the Monte Carlo thing. You guys are plaguing me, but I love, without question, jerk of all trades. I love the EcoBoost idea. That would, if I could get a hold of an EcoBoost and deliberately drop it into the Monte Carlo, without question, I would deliberately piss off the entire YouTube world and community and Facebook and everybody with that idea. As it is, the idea of swapping it over to a Ford Ranger engine in the first place, I'm pretty sure would really piss off them. Okay, so da, 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 da. Okay, so let's get back to this, because okay, you guys are coming up with some really awesome let's piss off the internet ideas for the Monte Carlo, and I totally dig the ideas, but let's see what we can do to finish this. Okay, must be a stock engine, no modification to the engine with the exception of steel push rods. Modification can be made to the stock type carburetor. So the clarification that they have decided to say on that, so as most of you know, the Mud Wizard has a snorkel intake on it. The snorkel intake is perfectly fine as far as what they are, as far as what they consider for their racing. What they're talking about is they do not want any Mikuni carbs on there. They do not want any OP racing carbs on there. They do not want any of that kind of stuff that is a blatant upgrade that's on there. They want a stock, generic, Nyko, Hireman, Chinese knockoff carburetor, stuff like that. The key, though, is you are allowed to modify the carburetor. So you could modify the carburetor, have bigger jets. That's a possibility. One of the things that I've debated for the racing channel is creating an oxygen sensor adapter that you could put on your exhaust to be able to tune carburetors and see what you could do. Something like that. You know, some sort of oxygen sensor type setup that you could be able to go and tune your carburetor in order to get the perfect burn going, and then, you know, unbolt it and put your regular straight pipe on or something like that. That's where I'm debating going with RCG racing, is coming up with the abstract racing ideas that we can continue to elaborate. Exhaust pipe modification, yet again, is allowed. So you can straight pipe it right out the side. You can straight pipe it straight down. You can do whatever. So depending on what we decide to do, we could have a bolt-on straight pipe that goes on Mud Wizard, and we could see if that actually gives us better times. That's another thing that I want to try out. I want to try out racing up to a certain point, getting consistent at a certain point, and let's change something up and let's see if it actually ends up messing it up or making it better. Let's race it with a stock carburetor on it. Let's get so that we have a constant ETA. Let's get so we have a constant time. And then let's deliberately mess with something. Let's put a straight pipe on it. Let's put a hot dog carburetor on it. I'm hot dog carburetor. Holy cow, that sounded stupid. A hot dog muffler on it. Let's take it and let's deliberately monkey with it. Kind of like how Roadkill was doing with their Power Nation. Let's take it. Let's deliberately test it. We're going to have a constant 150-foot drag. Let's see where we can go with it. Drivetrain modification is allowed. Now, to clarify drivetrain modification, they mean pulley swaps. I have talked with them about transmission modification. Transmission modification, they kind of gray area. The answer is it's okay to cut it down so that you only have, say, 3 gears. Let's say you deliberately built it so you had first gear, third gear for racing, and your top gear so that you could slap shift it. You'd have first gear for being able to drive it around in the pits. You'd have third gear for your takeoff. You'd have your slap shift gear. That is legal as long as you're not modifying anything else in the transmission technically. So we do have some play there. For those of you that have been around the RC Redneck Computer Geek channel, you know that I used to tear apart deliberately Peerless MST 203s to steal the case in order to build 206s. I do actually have the original 3-speed shift blockers out of 1 or 2 of those that I built. So we could put shift blockers in and make it so that that transmission is a slap shift 3-speed with 1 for driving around the pit, a third gear for being able to take off, and whatever we choose for a top gear, and we'll see what we end up with for a top speed. That's an idea that we could do. The other thing is we've got spare transmissions for days around here. So we could make a transmission that just drops right in. I mean, you guys have seen I can swap a transmission out of Mud Wizard in a matter of about 10 minutes. And so we could potentially take and have an MST series that we built with a first gear, a second gear, fifth gear, and we could build it with a first gear, third gear, sixth gear, and we could just throw them back and forth depending on what the track feels like that day. Go from there. Let me see. Governor override is allowed. They basically are talking gas pedal or full governor removal. And wheelie bars are mandatory and you must wear a helmet. So as far as the wheelie bar thing is concerned, I did talk with them about the wheelie bar. It does not have to actually be a welded on wheelie bar. It simply has to be a centered wheelie bar, and it's okay for it to be bolt on and removable as long as when they go for doing a tech check, that they can grab onto the thing, reef it around, lift the lawn tractor up, throw it around, and it stays put. So what I think we will do is I think we'll build a wheelie bar that comes back. I did ask if it was okay to have a spring-loaded wheelie bar, and they said that as long as it only has a minor amount of travel, it is okay to have a spring-loaded wheelie bar. So what I'm thinking is we build a wheelie bar that should never touch the ground, but has something like a mountain bike shock in it, so that if it ever comes back that far and it does touch, that the mountain bike shock is going to kick in and then bring it back over. Rather than slam into the ground and dig, I think that we should have a shock in there so that it comes down, settles, and then brings the tractor back down. What do you guys think? Do you think that's a good idea? Do you think that's a bad idea? And should we deliberately build wheelie bars and test which one works better, whether we should slam it into the ground and grind it, or whether we should build it with a shock and see if it catapults us and throws us over the hood of the tractor? Whatever you guys would like to test. I've got a couple extra minutes because Jessie drove herself to work today because of stuff that was going on. So we're going to keep talking just a little bit more here. So that's our small mod class. Small mod is what I'd like to go and stay in. I'd like to go and build small mod for the simple fact that once you get into big mod, you're going to be breaking things a lot more. And I like to go and keep my builds where the general population that watches me is capable of building. I don't want to get throwing a whole ton of money at this. I want to junkyard build as much as I can to start with in order to get into it and then go from there. When are we going to start this? I just saw that come up. That's a very good question. When are we going to start working on this? Right now, the section of the driveway that we want to do the test driving on is currently a mud run in itself. So as far as that is concerned, we're going to immediately start on the idea of the very drive testing and what kind of takeoff testing that I have as soon as it gets dry enough that it's relative to the same idea as the track we're going to be running on. The test and tune for the track is supposed to go and happen sometime next month, from what I understand. At that point, I'll get an idea as to what it is we're going to be running on. What I can tell you is that if you've ever been to horse track racing, one of the races is at here. I'm going to hold this up for you guys to see right now. Okay, see if you can see this. Okay, so the key thing is there, I think it's like the fifth item down. Yeah, the fifth item down is the Union Fairgrounds on August 29th. So the Union Fair, you're going to be racing on a horse track. It's horse track racing. The dirt there is going to be soft. The other thing is they're going to have monster truck stuff. It's just a show ride thing going on there. They're going to have monster truck stuff going on before it. So it's going to be torn up, really soft dirt for that one. I don't have a really soft dirt driveway. I have a very hard packed gravel driveway. So we're going to see what kind of difference that causes. All I know is the bear claws will absolutely tear into that. So we'll see what happens there. Okay. Basically, the next class up is Big Mod. They classify Big Mod as 750 cc's or less. Otherwise than that, they're all exactly the same modifications as far as the motor and stuff like that is concerned. So Big Mod is basically just a slightly bigger engine that still has to be stock components. A lot of you have been asking about really majorly modified tractors. They consider that to be their Outlaw class. We'll take a sec to throw that up right now. All right, hopefully all of you can read this. And I'm just going to really quickly go down through on this because this is where you want to go and spend your money if you want to race here. And I'm not going to do that yet. Maybe next year we'll decide to dump some money and we'll decide to do this. But I don't intend to race Outlaw for this year. There's only about 5 of them from what I understand that are planning on racing Outlaw, so I'm not too worried about it. It's not really their larger group. So the big thing about them is that number 7 on this list, racing approved flywheels are mandatory. No ifs, ands, or buts, required racing approved flywheel. So that really cuts down on the number of motors that are going to be legal to be able to run. And that also means that hands down, no ifs, ands, or buts, you are definitely going to be dropping some money to get in through the front door. I mean, just a racing flywheel alone with the stuff that goes with it, you're going to drop 200 plus without even flinching on the idea. To answer the question that I just saw scroll up because it caught my eye, You are not allowed to run an aluminum flywheel in the mod stock class, on the mod class. You're only allowed to run the aluminum flywheel in the Outlaw class. It's a very good question, and I'm sorry for the other people whose questions I haven't gotten to, but I'm trying to finish this up before I end up needing to get off of here. So I'm already running later than I planned on. Wheelie bar is mandatory, 750cc or less. Modification allowed to the engine internal and external. So you're allowed to go and really modify the internals and stuff. Modification allowed to stock mower drivetrain. It's Outlaw class. Obviously, you're dealing with that. Modification allowed to stock mower rear transaxle. So that's another situation where they have upgraded gears for the 820s, and that's what they're talking about, is running the upgraded racing setup for an 820 in the Outlaw class. Safety tether is required. I'm planning on running a safety tether anyway when it comes to the Mud Wizard. I actually was planning to install a safety tether before everything went all wonky months ago. So that's something that's going to be around pretty soon. Let's see. Racing approved flywheel is mandatory. And the other thing about Outlaw is that whole Mikuni carb thing. Outlaw class, you are allowed any carburetor that you want to run. So for those of you that really want to go and monkey with something and really want to build something, that's the Outlaw class. So that's where we're at right now. And I got about 5 minutes here. Let's see. So we're not going to bother trying to run Outlaw. No ifs, ands, or buts. Unless I hit the megabucks at some point this year, this is out of the question. No Outlaw. But as far as the small mod and as far as the big mod, there's a very good chance that I'll end up trying to go and run that. Apparently the top racer that's there right now in big mod runs a Kawasaki Twin, if I remember, which I've dealt with a bunch of those over the course of the last couple of years, and they seem to show up pretty commonly on the Husqvarnas that I've been finding. The YT series Husqvarna. If you guys remember last year, I ended up working on 2, maybe 3 of those that were in video. I think I ended up with 3, but only 2 made it onto the channel, if I remember right. So those Kawasaki's apparently they fit within the CC for the large mod. So we'll take a look into that. What's interesting about those Kawasaki's is that they're single carburetor, but they're big bore. So I don't know. Feel free to go and throw whatever statement you want and send me. Feel free to email me. Feel free to barrage me with as many emails as you want. Because the RCG Racing channel is new, until I hit 10,000 subscribers on it, there's a lot of features that I won't have on that channel that I will have here on the Redneck Computer Geek channel. So what I'm going to do is probably tomorrow, I'm going to post up on the community tab. Tomorrow, I'm going to post up on the community tab I'm going to post up a picture or something, or text, or a big photo or something that says, what would you drag race for a mower? Or what would you build for a drag racing mower? Or something like that. I'm going to post up a picture, and you guys are welcome to barrage it with as many comments as you want, and we'll go from there. We'll see what we can build. Is Mud Wizard going to be competitive drag racing? No. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's an extra 200 pounds on that thing that is unnecessary for drag racing, that is going to slow me down. There is no ifs, ands, or buts. It is not going to be competitive. That's not the point of taking Mud Wizard drag racing. The point of taking a drag racing is just to do it, to see what we can do, and then build a machine. So what I want to do is try and hit the first couple of events with Mud Wizard, and then come back in with a dedicated drag racing machine built from what we learn on the RCG Racing channel. As far as you guys are concerned, if you're in Maine, come join me. I've talked with them about the mud mowers. I've talked with them about ATV tires. I've talked with them about the X-Trax that we run on the front, the Snow Hogs, the Sun Dogs, all of that. They don't care. As long as you meet the tech requirement, they don't care. What they do care, though, if you're going to run a mud mower, is that they are going to require you to show up at a test and tune. They don't want just anybody showing up and drag racing and slamming into the crowd. They want you to show up for test and tune if you have a highly modified machine like mine. If you want to show up with, you know, turf savers that are cut or something like that, they'll probably let you go and join in to be able to race the day if you pass tech. But if you want to run a really modified mud mower like I'm planning on doing, they're going to require test and tune. So please, please, please join the group, be polite, come hang out, and let's go and get some tractors up and running. I know there's about 50 or so of you in just the vicinity between Bangor to Portland that run mud mowers. I've talked with a ton of you, so there's no reason within a 1 hour drive of this event that we can't manage to go and get a good solid 10 or 15 of us mud mower guys showing up in order to run with these guys. So let's do it. Let's get some people together. At this point, I'm going to go back through all these comments later. I'm kind of greasy. I'm kind of grungy. I've been kicking around in the garage, and I am definitely not date night worthy right now, and I probably stink. So I'm going to call it good with you guys. That way I can get dressed and showered and smell halfway decent for my date. But you guys keep feeling free to go and throw me the comments. Keep feeling free to go and throw me the emails. Feel free to join the Facebook page and send me a message on the Facebook page. And as always, thank you very much for showing up and giving your input and talking about everything. I will go back through and I'll read all the comments. And if there's anything that I need to kick back on, I will try to, okay? So thanks, everybody. And thank you very much for joining in.